Listen up, get ready, I'm not gonna take no more. There's a revolution, a revelation going on in my soul. Buckle up, get ready, we're not gonna sit back.
Hey, welcome back to Live from the Heartland for the week of September 9th. I am Michael James. I'm your host today. And I always like it when listeners and people I know are sending me lots of information about something that's coming up and actually requesting to be on the show. Take note of that, everybody. You know, it's at fatback at AOL. You want to be on, you got some information, get a hold of me. But a lot of people have been telling me about this sailboat, the Golden Rule, that is sailing around the Great Lakes. And I am lucky to have two people who are driving the support vehicle and helping to run the show, Gerry Condon and Helen Jaccard. And they, I think, are in Racine today.
Yes, we are.
Good morning, good afternoon to both of you.
And to you, hi.
Great to be here, Michael. Thank you for having us.
Well, let's get a little background on this. I think that I went to Veterans for Peace Golden Rule Project, and I found that this boat, the sailboat, is built in the 50s, and its original intention connected to the peace movement was to sail into areas in the Pacific, I believe, where nuclear testing was going on. And, people got arrested in Hawaii and the boat was seized. How about you give us a little history of the project of the Golden Rule?
Well, the whole thing started because the United States was testing nuclear weapons in the Marshall Islands. That's 4,000 miles out of San Francisco. So people were trying to get that stopped, and their efforts were not going anywhere. So this group of Quakers decided to get a boat and sail it right into the testing zone and put themselves in the way. And they made it to Hawaii and headed out, resupplied, headed out for the Marshall Islands, and the Coast Guard brought them back and arrested the crew. And
Hawaii is about halfway to the Marshall Islands, 2,000 miles from California to Hawaii and another 2,000 miles to Marshall Islands, right?
That's right. So it's a good place to resupply to finish the trip. And so another boat did succeed in taking the baton and made it into the Marshall Islands. So the arrest of the crew of the Golden Rule brought about a big backlash against nuclear weapons testing and ultimately helped give President Kennedy the cover he needed to sign the Limited Test Ban Treaty of 1963, only 5 years later. So we did succeed in helping to stop nuclear weapons testing, and this tactic inspired the founding of Greenpeace when they were trying to stop underground nuclear testing later.
Yeah. And then the boat was sold in 1958 after these protests and after the arrests and after the international hubbub, and sold into private hands. It was sailed by several families around the Caribbean, the South Pacific, other places, and somehow or other ended up a derelict boat that sank in Humboldt Bay in far northern California, on the Northern California coast, close to Oregon, in 2010. And the boatyard owner dragged it up out of the water and was actually considering making a bonfire out of it. But the local Veterans for Peace group found out about it and learned about its history and said, no, we want to restore that boat and restore its mission of sailing for a nuclear-free world. So that happened over the next 5 years, 5 years of volunteer effort. Some of those veterans and Quakers and others were in that boatyard every day for 5 years, lovingly restoring this beautiful, historic wooden boat. And for the last, we splashed down back into the water in June of 2015. And for the last 8 years, we've been sailing for a nuclear-free world and a peaceful, sustainable future.
Well, before I ask you about this particular cruise around the, or sail around the Great Lakes, I just had this pop in my mind. I had a friend named Barbara Swan, and her parents were peace activists. And I believe that they were in the Connecticut River, the Thames River, near United Boat, protesting nuclear submarines being built. Any connect? You guys remember that or know about that?
I think I've heard of Barbara Swan, but I don't know if I've met her.
But that is a lot of what we do. Actually, we sailed up and down the west coast of the U.S. and Mexico and British Columbia for several years, and all kinds of actions and activities, protesting outside the Trident nuclear submarine base up there near Seattle, Washington, protesting or having an alternative presence at Navy Fleet Week actions in many cities, even appearing in wooden boat shows and reaching a lot of people. Then we actually were over in Hawaii for 2 years, and our intention was to actually finally sail to the Marshall Islands and Guam and Okinawa and Japan, but COVID made that impossible. So we brought the boat back to the United States, and what we're doing now is we're on what's called the Great Loop, something that many boaters know about. Sailing all the way down the Mississippi, actually into the Ohio, Tennessee, and Tombigbee rivers, down to the Gulf of Mexico, to Florida. We actually went over to Cuba for 10 days, came all the way up the East Coast, all the way up to Bath, Maine, and then back down to New York City, through into the Hudson River, the Erie Canal, the Oswego Canal, into Lake Ontario, over to Toronto, and back. And now we're in the Great Lakes, having great events in many places. We were just in Milwaukee and had a Veterans for Peace there, did a wonderful job with many terrific events. So that's what we've been doing, having events. We've had almost 100 court calls with multiple events in each city. And we're just actually a few weeks away from finishing our 1-year voyage around the Great Loop. When we leave Racine tomorrow, we'll be going across Lake Michigan to St. Joseph. We're actually going to be driving over to Kalamazoo for a number of events there, and then we're headed to Chicago to see you guys, and that'll be our last stop. We have a whole week full of wonderful events there, including our final event to celebrate the success of our voyage, which will be on Sunday, September 17th.
Will that
you can see our whole
Chicago?
schedule. Yeah, that'll be in Chicago. You can see our whole schedule at our website. It's right on the homepage there. That's VFP for Veterans for Peace, VFPGoldenRule.org.
So we arrive in Chicago September 12th, and we depart September 18th, where we're going to go up to Racine and take down the masts and take the Golden Rule back to California. But in the meantime, we've got the dockside welcome on the 13th, and going to be at Lake Street Church on the 14th and participate in the Climate Strike March and have some boat tours. And then, as Gerry said, we'll have this this final event, a big reception. So
grand finale,
yeah. But one cool thing, on the 13th, after the press conference at 10:30 at noon, we're going to have a picnic in the park at Montrose Harbor, where the Golden Rule's going to dock.
Oh, good. I was going to ask where it's going to be moored, because that's familiar territory, Montrose Harbor.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
So the reception we've been getting has really been amazing. Everywhere we go, people just love this boat. They love the story behind it, and they appreciate the continuing effort to keep this boat sailing for a nuclear-free world. We get thanks profusely. We get all kinds of wonderful events organized for us. And, what we've been seeing is that people are just hungry for hope. And this boat and its whole story of courage and determination brings a lot of hope. There is a future. Yes, Michael. So people, and hope only comes through action, right? So, we try to give people positive actions they can take. We're supporting the UN Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons, and various efforts, the I CAN Cities campaign to get cities and states to encourage the federal government to sign that nuclear ban treaty. We also support several pieces of legislation, including the Back from the Brink bill, which would have the U.S. declare a no first strike policy, take weapons off hair trigger alert, and stop spending billions of dollars on the modernization of our nuclear weapons, take away the president's sole authority, one individual, one megalomaniac possibly deciding whether there's going to be a nuclear war in the world. So we're pushing these measures, and we're also reminding people that, sad to say, the world is in greater danger of nuclear war now than possibly ever. Many people think we're in more danger now than we were in 1962 during the Cuban Missile Crisis because of the proxy war that's going on in Ukraine between Russia and the U.S., the two nuclear superpowers, which continues to escalate to a dangerous, very, very dangerous level. Now the U.S. is sending depleted uranium weapons and cluster bombs, and what'll be next, we're not sure. They are playing a game of nuclear chicken over there. So Veterans for Peace, which is the owner of the boat and the sponsor of this our voyages, is part of the Peace in Ukraine coalition. We are calling for an immediate ceasefire to end the killing and negotiate an end to that war before it becomes something horrible for the entire world. And we're actually co-sponsors of the Global Week of Action for Peace in Ukraine, September 30th to October 8th. People can find out about that at peaceinukraine.org.
You know, you talk about proliferation of nuclear weapons. Who are the allies in the U.S. government to that, move to prevent more nuclear weapons or to ban them? Are there any senators, Congress people who people should take note of and support?
Well, at one point we thought that Joe Biden might be an ally because when he ran for president, he said he was seriously considering declaring a no first use policy, but he has not done so by any means. There are a number of people. Senator Markey in Massachusetts has been a champion for nuclear abolition for a number of years. Congressman Jim McGovern, also of Massachusetts, has introduced this back from the Brink bill that we mentioned earlier. What's the number? It's HRES 77, if people want to check that out. Well, there are others.
Eleanor Holmes
Norton, the non-voting member of Congress, representing Washington, D.C., which apparently doesn't deserve a vote in the Congress because there's too many black people that live there, and they're all Democrats. So the Republicans say no vote for them. But anyway, she is an active member of Congress nonetheless, and she has been introducing this bill for a number of years. And it's what's it called, Helen?
It's the Nuclear Abolition and Economic Conversion Act.
Yeah.
So it would take the money away from nuclear weapons spending and put it into human needs and life-affirming activities.
Yeah. So, but at the national level, sadly, it's sad to say there are too few champions at this point in time. But there's an awful lot at the local level. Over 70 cities and the mayors of 70 cities have signed they're
part of Mayors for Peace.
They're part of Mayors for Peace, but also they've signed the ICAN letter, the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, calling on the U.S. to sign the treaty, the nuclear ban treaty. A lot of those cities are also signing that's back from the Brink measures. We've been greeted by over 40 mayors and city councils have come out and met the boat with proclamations welcoming us, sometimes declaring it Golden Rule Day or week, and affirming these nuclear abolition measures. It's relatively easy at the local level because guess what? There's very few people across the political spectrum who think that nuclear war is a good idea.
Yeah, it'd be great to get rid of it, certainly before it happens again. Now, you've mentioned a couple of organizations, Greenpeace and Veterans for Peace. Do you want to share a little bit about, I know that Veterans for Peace is kind of the holder of the boat or owner of the boat and the leader of the project. Tell us about them. And then the relationship with Greenpeace. I knew a guy named Jack Weinberg. I knew him from the free speech movement at Berkeley. I don't know if he's still real active, but he was a heavy hitter in Greenpeace for a long time.
Well, Veterans for Peace has been around since 1985. We have over 100 chapters, members around this U.S. and several international chapters as well. Our mission is not only to abolish nuclear weapons, but to abolish war altogether. And we have a lot of different projects going on, and we're very proud to be sponsoring the Golden Rules voyages. We've really stepped up our game in the last few years in terms of dealing with the threat of nuclear war. We have a lot of other important projects, including, for example, the climate crisis and militarism project of Veterans for Peace, which is demonstrating how the U.S. military is a huge contributor, the largest to global warming, the largest consumer of oil in the world, and then they go to war for oil. 850 foreign military bases around the world, every one of them an environmental disaster. So, yeah, these are important connections that Veterans for Peace has been making, and you can check out all our work. And if you're a veteran, we strongly encourage you to consider joining. And even if you're not a veteran, we have associate members such as Helen here, people who want to lift up the voice of veterans. So we about 20% of our members are actually non-veteran members, and very important to us. So consider joining Veterans for Peace. We just had a very successful convention with lots of great workshops. I think those are all going to be available soon on the Veterans for Peace website, which is very simple, veteransforpeace.org.
Well, I'm glad that you have room for non-veterans. I mean, I am a veteran of the streets and fighting against wars. I certainly, I really love the sound of this organization. So the boat, Chicago is your last event this time. And then you're going to pull the boat out of the water. You're going to tow it back to California, right?
That's right.
And what's the plan for the next sail of the Golden Rule? Any inkling in your eye or hints about where they'll show up next, where people can go down dockside and check you all out?
Well, yeah, tentatively, we're talking about a trip back up to the Pacific Northwest, where we haven't been since 2016.
Yeah, we have a lot of friends up that way.
Up by Marrowstone Island up there's that big military complex. I have a friend that lives up there on visit, and it's this little island. It's all military stuff and nuclear stuff. Mm-hmm.
Well, everywhere we sail, I mean, we've seen, first of all, we've seen just a beautiful, beautiful countryside everywhere we've gone. We've been blown away by the natural beauty, but every bit of natural beauty seems to be crowded and threatened by environmental disasters or looming environmental disasters, and a lot of that is our military installations. So that's part of what we do as we go along, is bring attention to those military and other nuclear-related facilities that are already poisoning or threatening to poison the environment even further. In terms of future voyages, Michael, I just want to say that people are always putting bugs in our ear. This idea of going around the Great Loop was something that people were discussing a few years ago, and we thought, oh, that's way too ambitious. We could never do that. Well, here we are. We're just about finished, and it's been incredibly successful. Now, people are saying, well, you know what? Maybe you should go to the Pacific. If you don't want to sail all the way across there, maybe put the boat on a ship, take it over to Asia, and start sailing around, Japan, Okinawa, Vietnam, China, Korea. Get in the way of the war that's brewing there, as the U.S. is clearly preparing the way, pretty much openly preparing for a war against China. So we have to be concerned about that too. Maybe the Golden Rule will end up bringing peace to the Asia Pacific. That would be nice.
I want to encourage people to go to the website. Veterans for Peace, Golden Rule Project, however you find it, but there is actually a film there that has a lot of neat stuff to watch. And let me, I'm really enjoying this, but I want to do what I do sometimes and ask my guests, in this case it's Gerry Condon and Helen Jaccard, how did you two get involved in the movement? And just share a little bit of information about activism and your own part in it.
Well, in my own case, I was of age during the Vietnam War, so I actually enlisted in the Army under threat of the draft. I ended up training as a Special Forces medic, which kept me in training and in the States for quite a long time. I got to talk to a lot of returning Vietnam veterans, heard stories about U.S. soldiers' atrocities against Vietnamese civilians, and I finally decided I couldn't be part of that war. I started speaking out against it. I refused orders to Vietnam. I was court-martialed and sentenced to prison, but I actually managed to escape before I was imprisoned, and spent 6 years in Sweden and Canada working with other draft resistors and deserters. I was part of the American Deserters Committee in Stockholm. And there was a huge anti-war movement in Sweden and in Europe, and I became part of that and inspired by that. I learned a lot, and been going strong ever since, pretty much.
Yeah, you got a lot of good information, brother. And how about you, Helen?
Oh, I didn't even know there was a peace movement till I met Gerry.
But that was a while ago.
Yeah, that was in 2006. And then we joined Veterans for Peace together, got involved with the Golden Rule Project when we showed up in the boatyard to help finish the boat, and got roped into being the project manager soon after that.
Helen has been crew and project manager and really the glue that holds this whole project together. Anybody who's close to the project will tell you that. So she's made an incredible contribution, and this wouldn't be happening without her. So kudos to you, Helen.
Oh,
Kudos to you, Helen. The Golden Rule will arrive in Chicago on the 12th.
We're arriving on the evening of the 12th, right?
right. So I'll start all of our activities on the 13th, and you can get the schedule at vfpgoldenrule.org. But it's going to be a pretty busy schedule. The big day is going to be on Wednesday the 13th, when we've got the big peace party in the park and the Oak Park Library, and just check it out.
There's a lot of things being organized in Chicago. We're really looking forward to it. So aside from going to the website, vfpgoldenrule.org, you can call Helen if you want more information, or if you have an idea, something you'd like to do while we're in Chicago, take us out to dinner or something. 206-992-6364.
That's the golden phone number. Okay.
That's right.
Anything that I didn't ask you that you want to share? I think we got a lot in. I do want to thank the people from Nuclear Energy Information Service, Dave Kraft, for staying on this and alerting us to it. And there were other people.
He's doing an amazing job coordinating all these Chicago activities.
He's quite a guy. And then Jan Boudard, a longtime activist here in the 49th Ward, has been on my case with emails, and I'm so glad that we made the connection. I am going to be out of town for some of that, but I will come down after we record next week's show. I'll come down to Montrose Harbor and say hi if you guys are there. You may be somewhere else doing a program, but I want to at least see the boat and take a picture.
We look forward to meeting you, Michael, and this is a great interview. Thank you so much for having us.
Okay, brother. Okay,
Thank
sister.
you.